Welcome, good morning. So moving forward, I want to review here. We've been introducing some quotes, the ideas from Carl Fried Graf Durkheim about this process of our transformation that clearly we are in now collectively. And in this time, basically the events of the world as they continue to, well, I'm not sure if it's accelerate. I mean, there's been an acceleration over the past several centuries that coalesced at time wave zero in 2012. And now, as we enter, we passed through that portal. And now as we enter, we're taking baby steps into the age of Aquarius, into this new era of our flowering, okay, as the new species, Homo glimulus or Homo spiritus. It's really important that we remember, okay, with a minimum of acceptance, okay, the base level for a new earth, the evolution of our species, okay, the tribal Homo erectus process of several million years of development, then shifting into the egoic mind Homo sapiens over the past few thousand years, developing, bringing its contribution to this evolutionary process. And now, I mean, again, in my calculation, this process of, the seeds were planted for Homo spiritus, Homo glimulus in the 1960s. In particular, I wrote about this time, 1967 was like this tipping point where anyway, the new era began, the seeds were planted that would begin flowering, taking several decades to germinate. But it's clear that the time is now that what appeared to happen in a very immature way in the 1960s, a certain level of consciousness that would protest a variety of things and stand up for something better. It was an immature effort, very much like adolescence, standing up against parental authority. So over these past 5 decades, this immature but beautiful consciousness has ripened, matured. So it is us now, particularly those of us in the baby boomer generation, many of us that were born between 1945 and 1964, that it's our time. It's our time now as we're all moving into our third age, okay, what they call it down here. At the age of 66, you enter the third age, tercero edad. And this is the time for us to step up as kings and queens, step into this authority that comes from our spiritual awareness, okay? The authority of the world, it is not going to be reigning in another decade or so. Our manifestation will be reigning, will be stepping into our authority, our power to care for our earth and each other, our species. So, this is the call, again, Durkheim's other book that I've referred to many times, that this time, evolution is calling for masters, which I acknowledge and I accept that was what I was born to do, was to be present in this time, with a certain level of mature spiritual consciousness that could gently, calmly demonstrate what evolution is calling for, what we are calling for, because for many, many of those in the world that are vibrating at the level and Hawkins scale of 200, sort of the limit of the tribal mind, they're easily being overwhelmed by this process. Basically, for them, it's an extinction requirement for evolution, because their contribution, they're the laborers of the world, and what the egoic mind, the brilliant egoic consciousness, has developed over the past century is the technology to have all of that labor be done by artificial intelligence, robotics, whatever you want to call it. So it's really it's vital for us with our consciousness to be able to give a blessing, to give a great thank you, to move from acceptance to gratitude for the contribution of the tribal peoples of the world, that for these past hundreds of thousands of years, it has served a very beautiful function, even though, at times you could say it looks barbaric, it looks whatever. It's just what it is. It's just the animal of our species, Homo, that was developing. Okay, and so it's beautiful to be able to take all of that history and just give it a big hug and go, wow, you Vikings, wow, I mean, it was a very brutal period of several thousand years, basically warring, survival, looking to conquest other cultures and other peoples, all for world domination. This idea that, of course, is coming to fruition. The antecedents would eventually become the new world order that just wants to dominate, wants to control everything. And it's really important, again, that those of us that are willing to step into our mastery, can look at that, the development of that, the combination of the tribal and the egoic, that would bring everything that we see today to a head. Okay, so what is happening today very clearly is that this old energetic principle, sort of the peak of the warring tribal consciousness is taking dominance. The chieftains, the pharaohs, the kings and queens, they're saying, okay, the time is now, game's over. We're just going to claim world domination. And it's okay. Let them have their fun. Because the bigger picture, which is, again, we have to be the ones that are holding a very clear knowledge, understanding, acceptance of the big picture, which is evolution. We're evolving into a new species. So all of these events that, again, are coalescing now in the world are forcing one of two things. There's the extinction wave, which will be the vast majority of the population of the world will become extinct. And then there's the evolutionary wave, which is us, which will be preparing, poised to assume the mantle after all the dust settles, after people go like, whoo, that was amazing. Now what? How do we move forward now that everything that we are seeing and we'll see over the next decade, once that is all transpired, okay, and 90+% of the world's population has been exterminated, how do we move forward in a very beautiful way? Because in ways that we can't fully understand, the big structures that appear to be controlling things are going to collapse. They'll basically implode because it's like, again, these are children with their toys. Oh, we won the game. Woohoo! Now what? You have people like Bezos and Tesla, they're thinking about colonizing space. Good, go for it. You guys all move to space. Those of us that truly care about our mother, the earth, we're going to be here to embrace her and each other and go, kumbaya time, baby. Now we get to fully manifest the highest dream of our species. Not those that want to just go off with AI and all of this artificial everything. They want to create artificial worlds. Okay, I don't want to zoom off into space and live in an artificial world. I love this world right here. Again, so inspired yesterday by Zach Bush's beautiful soliloquy about the biome, about this earth, all of my life I've loved the plants and the rocks and the water. I've just loved nature so much. So I'm so delighted that my journey has come full circle. Now again, in my tercera edad, again, like a little boy who loves to play in the fields of the Lord, loving to play in the beauty of nature, loving the peace, the harmony, loving it. For me, this is the highest evolution of our species that I can imagine. For me. And I'm hoping that in speaking for us, those of us, the many thousands of us, these points of light, the highest representation of our generation, because the younger people coming along, they're ready for this. All the stuff that I'm talking about, it's like going to be like, oh, sure, okay. They'll just step into their role. But they need the elders. They need those of us who can guide them. And, with the experience of what we've learned over the past 60-something years, we have the ability with our maturity to truly envision and create something new, but still using the parts of the old. Okay, we're not zooming off into space and creating colonies of android, transhuman, whatever. We are still the humans, the beautiful, organic, natural humans, Homo glimulus. Okay, we're humans, but with the glimulus. Okay, the glimulus is the light I've been talking about, this powerful electromagnetic principle that instructs us and moves us and will be the way in which we build this new earth. I was watching one little documentary about Egyptian the pyramids or whatever. Anyway, there's all this talk about the Anunnaki and all of this awareness and this ability to use power that's not what we understand in our world, because it's a power it's something that some of us, like Nicholas Tesla, he understood. There's like unlimited power that we actually can tap into, and we are tapping into now, because this power is basically what's flowing through us saying, watch what spiritual power can do. Again, we're talking about these levels in the Hawkins scale of, the tribal mind 200, the limit of the egoic mind 400, which is, 100 times more powerful than the tribal. But then you move into 600, which is the baseline of a new earth, 100 times more powerful. than the limits of the egoic mind. And then you go into 800, the highest level of this new earth, this enthusiasm, that those of us that have the ability to vibrate at that level, we bring in, we usher in, we're the conduits for a level of power that is beyond any ability for the rational mind to comprehend. Okay, but way back 10,000 years ago or whatever, the Anunnaki, and it was normal for them. That was the normal then. Okay, we've gone through these waves, these cycles, and apparently there's like the 17,000 year cycle that, so 7,000 years from now, all of this will be clearly the new normal again, where this unlimited universal energy is available to everybody. So it's like nothing is difficult. There's no more, all of this efforting that has happened over the past several thousand years for humans to figure out ways for transportation, ships, trains, and automobiles and planes and whatever. All of that is like, that was like children playing with toys. It's like, are you kidding me? So again, if you watch the Zeitgeist series, Peter Joseph, a very brilliant man who just sort of really does a beautiful job of showing the big picture of our evolution and how we now, in a much different way than anything we've seen before, at least in modern history, the past 5,000 years of sort of, modern, what's been written, we've been going through this return, going through a very dark time. If we look back over the last century, it was the darkest time for our species. I mean, it's like, what? I mean, many people would question the authority of evolution if it appeared that the 20th century was a higher evolution than the 18th century. Not so much. I mean, in certain ways it's clear, but we never learned, Homo sapiens never learned in any appreciable way how to love each other better, get along with each other better, share the bounty of the earth better, all of that. I mean, none of that was successful for Homo sapiens. Okay, Homo sapiens seemed to have achieved this one thing with this egoic, brilliant mind, the ability to create a web of communication that was by far the highest achievement of that species. Okay, so using that accomplishment, which we're using right now, and I'm sure this particular technology will just continue to increase, where we have the ability to communicate instantaneously at no cost. So it's kind of like, the idea of free energy, so we have free communication and very soon we'll have free energy. Okay, so the idea that we as a species, as communicators, I mean, that's clearly the thing that we were designed to do best, was communicate with each other so that we could collectively receive this big download that's in the process of moving into the world. I mean, it's not going to be like I don't think a certain moment, but I think it's voices like mine that will continue, Zach Bush, continue to speak about the glory of Earth, the glory of our humanity, the glory that we are here to claim, okay? Not run scared like all the tribal people that are just, they're putting on their masks and taking their vaccinations, and they're willing to go through the process of their extermination. That's very clear that that's what's happening. So that the eugenicists have been practicing for the past century, and they've got it down. They've got it down really well, how to frighten all the children, how to control them, how to exterminate them, and that's what they're doing. So, and again, that's something that we need to accept as a necessary part of our evolution as a species, because again, those people, the tribal people, they're not any longer of use. Okay, the earth, the evolution of our species, again, wants to give them a great blessing. Thank you so much for your contribution. And now we move on. They can't move on with us, right? It's like appreciating your childhood or appreciating your adolescence. You look back over your own evolution, you go like, wow, thank you, child. Thank you, teenager. Thank you, the young version of myself, for making your contribution. But guess what? We move forward. We move on. You know, if I even look at, that's why I say for us to really step into mastery, we have to be able to first see this at our own level of individual evolution. Then we can appreciate and be a part of our evolution as a collective, as a species. So it's very important to give thanks, give a big hug of gratitude to the tribal people, and then give them the best ending, which again just has to be bringing the consciousness of acceptance and gratitude to them, to say thank you so much for making your contribution. And you know, it's a big thing. I haven't talked about it yet in this series, but I did in earlier presentations about, you know, the prophecy about the eagle flying with a condor. And it really, you could say that that's one of the ways in which you'd say, okay, the egoic mind represented by North America, integrating with the tribal mind of represented here in the South American culture, that out of that integration will come this new, you know, something better. Because clearly the egoic mind, with all of its brilliance, was really doomed because, you know, it's again the epitome of that warring consciousness that is always angry, always fighting, always hating. You know, the hatred and the anger that we see being expressed all around the world is just the full flowering of this very ugly egoic consciousness that's it's doomed. It was a necessary ingredient. You know, it's again like saying in our own development, we needed that angry teenager to say, fuck you, dad, and fuck you, government, and fuck you, whatever. But we don't want to stay there. Okay. So in our evolution now as a species, we don't want to stay in that adolescent, fuck you, globalists, fuck you, Bill Gates, fuck you, vaccines. It's like, okay, we accept this is a necessary part of the completion of that stage of our evolution. So it's going to be very messy to the people that are in it, you know, for the tribal and egoic people that are locked in those levels of consciousness. There's no hope. There's no happy ending for them. For the tribal people, easier extinction. For the egoic people, not as much, because theirs is more going to be for the next decade just a horrible, horrible fight, which they will lose. So it's, you know, again, the whole point is not to rebel against what is. Okay, what is a completion of this evolutionary cycle of the tribal and egoic mind, the completion of it, the ending of it, the dissolution of those magnificent forms, so that this new earth might, in a very gentle, beautiful, peaceful way, just flower. It's not going to come from a fight. They're going to fight. When they're done fighting, when the dust settles, I'm here, we're here. I mean, we're already doing the work. I mean, we're gathering, we're preparing, we're holding each other as the world goes crazy. We need to hold each other with this very calm knowing what is happening is beautiful, beyond comprehension. What we are seeing, what I see now, but hopefully you will see, many others will see, as things continue to unfold, we will see the germination. Okay, the germination of this new earth. You know, the seeds, like I say, were planted in the 1960s, and now they're germinating. You know, some seeds, I work with plants all the time. Some seeds take weeks and months and whatever. In this case, because these are big seeds about a whole new species, 50 years. 50 years of germination. Now they flower. So the thing that I want you to hear, and again, I refer you back to Zach Bush, but what he talks about in his beautiful soliloquy is a hopeful message. Okay, but he still kind of speaks to the problem. Zeitgeist, the same thing, the problem. It's like, what happened with the people that lost paradise? Okay, paradise was never lost. For me, I've been holding it in my heart, holding it in my consciousness, always. You know, I didn't get involved directly in the 1960s protests and all that, but I was there to start receiving the download that was coming in between 1967 and middle of the 1970s. This was the download that was coming in. I speak of referring to A Course in Miracles and the different teachers that were coming forward in this time. There was a beautiful, you know, like all of the best energy of the world kind of coalesced. Many of it moved with individuals to North America, where it would just, again, go into hibernation, this period, 50 years of incubating, right? Talk about this whole thing, preparation, incubation, illumination, and expression. So we are now in this process of you know, the very last part of this incubation period, where points of light like myself and others will start sharing the illumination, sharing that the time is now, and we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are now the elders that will lead this quiet revolution. While the rest of them are fighting, we get to lead a quiet revolution that says, hold steady. Just hold each other, hold the dream. It's becoming a reality, but this all has to happen first. This stuff, it's like the dissolution of the old forms is a necessity. I keep, you know, this is what Durkheim talks about, zones of annihilation. Okay, if we think about with our species, the evolution of our species, we've had several in the past 100, 150 years. We've had a number of zones of annihilation where it would appear like, oh, a world war, oh, a world, whatever, the crash of economies, the whatever, just zones of annihilation that nationalism, capitalism, these really big, strong structures need to fully implode. Imperialism, you know, this is stuff that's been dominating our species for the past several thousand years. And now it's over. Okay, so we want to see it come to a beautiful crescendo, crazy crescendo. I mean, you would anticipate, okay, in sort of world politics, you would anticipate a nuclear war between China and USA. That would be, I would expect that would be like, well, that would be probably a very necessary, a very good thing. Okay. I was trying to get back to a while, several months ago, I'd seen a thing from Celeste Solum. I can't recover I wrote to her asking her to describe again the 4 stages of this process, because they had it all kind of mapped out with FEMA and all that. They knew the stages, BERN, and I can't remember now, but we're in the B now, the biological. Okay, so this thing was the whole, you know, bioweapon was, it's all this scenario that's going to play out. Okay, so now this bioweapon that was built in a lab in Wuhan, China, is being released, and this whole thing is about economic collapse, okay, biological, economic. But then the last two, it's like radiation or nuclear. I'm not sure if those are R and N. But anyway, in the scenario, there would be a nuclear event that you would expect, and you would expect it to be between China and USA, and then it's over. It's like, wow, there's no more USA, there's no more China, there's no more Russia, there's no more countries. Remember the dream, okay? Moving into by 2032, there cannot be any more countries, any more governments, any more religions, any more private ownership of property. All those things that John Lennon spoke to in the song Imagine. This is intended to become the new reality because it makes sense. It makes total sense. I mean, I get it that no personal ownership of property, that we all live in community, and we all share the resources, the abundance of the world. That makes total sense to me. I would always say the biggest problem in the world was simply the personal ownership of property. The idea that somebody could own land, somebody could own buildings, somebody could own this. And so now you have this creepy little idea coming to this very creepy crescendo where a few own everything. They own it all. That's kind of the idea of the New World Order, that there'll be this collection of a dozen or so people, individuals that now own the world. They own all the land, they own all the buildings, they own all everything. And game over. Now what do you do? Okay, so the idea that has to implode. That has to be like, that was crazy. There'll be this big fight about, okay, how are we going to move forward? There has to be a better way. And I don't know if anybody yet can see fully the better way. I think Peter Joseph with Zeitgeist had some pretty good ideas about it, but who would be sort of managing? Who would be the manager of this one world? We wouldn't call it any longer a government. Again, it's not my personal ambition to try to figure that out or even fully imagine it, but I imagine it to the point that I'm creating it here in a very small way in the OASIS Center for Conscious Living and outside of Cuenca, Ecuador, that you have intentional community. And this has been done many, many times in the past, usually around some kind of religious or eco-political agenda. But the idea is very solid. This is even back in the 1960s. There was so much of a real push for communes and all of that. So this idea of communism in a good way is truly the future of our species, okay? So, yeah, I feel like that's probably enough for today, but I really want to just emphasize again, with all of the talk about, the catastrophic, the apocalyptic, events that are happening and will continue to happen, that it's so important for those of you who have ears to hear, eyes to see, that we need to hold on to the pristine glory of truth, of beauty, of love, because these divine principles are not going to be affected at all. No worldly events ever affect reality, okay? The world, as you might see it, is not reality. Reality is what I'm speaking about. Reality is what is informing us. Reality is what is assuring us that what is real cannot be threatened. Okay, perfect opening to A Course in Miracles. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So what's playing out in the world, in the space-time world, is a necessary evil. But again, remember, it's all angelic in the sense that it's moving forward this much bigger agenda, bigger than any human agenda could ever imagine. It's simply called evolution. And we are evolving into something new. And if you become a member of this new species with me, Sun King, not me, Louis, Sun King, as you become a member of this new species, as you willingly accept and appreciate and bring enthusiasm to what we're doing, building a new earth, the rest of it is fine. It's acceptable. It has to be, remember, it has to be acceptable. And if you're really with it, you'll be like grateful. Thank you, Bill Gates. Thank you, George Soros. Thank you, Wuhan, China. Thank you, those of you that are helping bring down the beast. Okay, that this new, very beautiful human will emerge. Okay, very important to remember what is true, to hold to what is beautiful. Come down here and spend time with me. I guarantee you every day, I'm surrounded by beauty. I'm surrounded by peace. I'm surrounded by tranquility and beauty and harmony and love and all of these things. It's possible to live in that environment because, again, what we want to do as powerful manifestors is manifest the world around us that is in alignment with our truth. Our truth becomes our manifested truth. So I love you all so much. Until tomorrow. Well, it's always today, but you know what I mean. Next time.